Today, I want to talk about something we hear about all the time but rarely understand: why people commit crimes. Is it that poverty causes crime, or does crime create poverty? Let's break this down in a simple, honest way. People don't just wake up one morning and decide, you know what? I think I'll ruin my life today. Crime is almost always the end result of a mix of forces pushing on someone, often from a very young age. First, let's talk about poverty and the lack of opportunity. When you grow up with no real job prospects, no access to good schools, and constant financial stress, survival becomes your only priority. For some people in that situation, crime starts to look like the only door left open. It's not a choice they want to make. It's a choice they feel they have to make. Second, the environment they grow up in plays a huge role. If a kid grows up seeing gangs, violence, and crime every single day, it starts to feel normal. It's just a part of life. We all, to some extent, become what we see around us. When what you see is chaos, it's hard to imagine a different path. Third, we have to consider trauma and an unstable home life. Abuse, neglect, addiction in the family, these experiences literally change the way a young brain develops. Without support or a way to process that pain, it often turns into acting out, anger, or self-destructive behavior. That pain has to go somewhere. Fourth is mental health and addiction. A massive percentage of crimes are connected to untreated mental illness or substance abuse. When people can't get the help they need for what's going on inside their heads, their problems can spiral out of control, sometimes leading to desperate acts. And finally, peer pressure and the need for an identity. A lot of young people fall into crime simply because they want to belong. When you don't feel valued or seen anywhere else, at school, at home, the wrong crowd can start to feel like the only family you have. So this brings us to the big question: does poverty cause crime, or does crime cause poverty? The short answer is poverty almost always comes first. Think about it. Communities with high poverty rates deal with underfunded schools, which means kids aren't getting a good education. There are fewer job opportunities, so even if you do everything right, there's no work. There's more stress, more trauma, and a higher exposure to violence on a daily basis. All of this creates the perfect storm, the conditions that lead to crime. But here's where it gets complicated. Once crime takes hold in a neighborhood, it absolutely creates more poverty. Businesses pack up and leave, property values plummet. The few jobs that were there disappear. Families who can afford to move out do. Public services get cut. And suddenly, you're trapped in a downward spiral. The crime makes the poverty worse, and the worsening poverty fuels more crime. It's a vicious cycle. So how do we break this cycle? How do we prevent crime before it even starts? The solutions that actually work aren't complicated or expensive, they're human. First, we need to support kids early. I'm talking about programs for children from birth to age 5. The research is clear. A little stability and support at the very beginning of life dramatically reduces the chances of that child getting into trouble later on. It's the best investment we can make. Second, we need strong schools and safe neighborhoods. Every kid deserves teachers who care and streets where they can play without fear. When schools are a refuge and a place of opportunity, kids are much more likely to succeed. Third, after-school programs are a game changer. Most youth crime happens in that window between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. after school lets out, but before parents get home from work. Give young people something constructive and engaging to do during those hours, and crime rates drop almost instantly. Fourth, we have to provide accessible mental health and addiction care. Healing trauma isn't just a nice idea. It's a core part of preventing future violence. When people can get help for their pain, they're less likely to inflict pain on others. Fifth, let's create real job opportunities for teenagers. Summer jobs, trade school training, and apprenticeships give young people hope. They give them a paycheck, a sense of purpose, and a clear reason to stay on the right path. And finally, we need to offer real rehabilitation for people who have been to prison. If someone gets out with no job, no support system, and nowhere to go, what do we expect to happen? They often fall right back into the same cycle that got them there in the first place. Helping people rebuild their lives after prison isn't just compassionate, it's one of the smartest ways to reduce crime. At the end of the day, crime is a symptom. The real disease is poverty, trauma, and a lack of opportunity. If we focus on fixing the conditions people grow up in, we'll see that families become safer, communities become stronger, and the entire cycle of crime will begin to break. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into topics like this. See you next time.